Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Make America Civil Again. Today we have a special treat, so be sure to watch all of it. But before we begin, I always say like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified that your favorite YouTube interviewer has posted a new video every Wednesday. So today I am here with David and Shalina, and they have been married for
a year and a half?
Yeah, there we go.
a year and a half. Wow, you guys sound like you're already been married for so long.
Just a year and a half.
20 years? No, year and a half. Wow. You guys have been married for a year and a half. So how'd you guys meet?
Well, we went to middle school and high school together and knew of each other and kind of went across circles a little bit, but didn't really ever date or really have interest. And then about 3.5 years ago, we reconnected through a good old-fashioned Bumble.
Yeah.
And
romance apps.
yeah, there we go. They work. And then just ever since,
Yeah. We,
been together. Yeah.
we started dating pretty quickly and hit it off. And it was easy because we had a lot in common. We knew a lot of the same people. We grew up in the same neighborhoods, so
Okay.
it just worked out.
All right, so there is something that I have to reveal now that I didn't reveal yet, but you guys differ politically.
Oh yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. And it works. Yeah.
The spirit of America right now is, it feels like everyone on the left is going to move east and everyone on, well, except for California, maybe we should switch it. But whatever way, it seems like we're separating, but it seems like a year and a half amongst that time you guys decided to get married.
We did. I mean, and it's not like the political climate was any different when we started dating and got together. And of course, that tends to come up in early conversations. But I think the main reason why it's always worked for us is that we were always not afraid to have the conversations that needed to be had.
Yeah.
And I think that people are really quick and ready to just shut down when they hear something they disagree with,
Yeah.
and they don't feel like they can have a conversation about why they disagree. And we do. I mean, that's, most relationships have disagreements.
Yeah.
Ours often are politically based, but we talk it out and we agree to disagree a lot of the time, and then the rest of the time try to see where the other person's coming from.
David, let me ask you, before you got married, did you ever think you could marry someone who is on the other side of that political aisle?
No. I've never dated anybody before. Wink, wink. But all the previous people that I knew were all on the same side of the aisle as me. And
Okay.
it was one of those things where it's, you're getting to know somebody and you start having conversations about things that matter to you. And you just kind of gravitate to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it always made sense. And I always felt, that's kind of the way I want to go. I want to go with someone who shares my values and can appreciate kind of my perspective. And it's funny because we're pretty far apart on most things, but I feel like we have a shared sense of values.
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, I think that there's like a core set of values that we both share. I think if I had the same question asked me, I would give the same answer. I just probably would jokingly say before, like, there's no way I would date someone that I have that much in common, because what would you have in common with them at the end of the day?
Yeah.
But it's funny because that's kind of what polarizes us on both sides, right? Is we just think that we're going to be so different at our core than the people on the other side, but we have so much more in our lives that define us other than our political beliefs.
When you guys first started dating and it started becoming apparent to you that there are disagreements politically, like, what were you guys thinking in your own mind?
We brought up politics on our first date. And
Probable.
I think so. And I remember, I don't even remember the exact conversation, but I remember him just like saying a little one-off comment. And I was just like, nope, not the guy for me. I'm done. Not gonna happen. And then I went home and I'm like, it was the only negative part of our entire first date. And who could say that, right? Like, usually there's like a little bit of red flags all over the place. And this wasn't a huge one, but I was just like, oh no, that's awful. And then I kind of reflected on it. I'm like, okay, I've been out there dating for how many years now, and I've gone on how many first dates, And this first date, the only thing that I can complain about was that one little comment, that one little conversation. Like, that's not enough to not keep seeing him.
What about for you, David? What was going through your head?
You know, it's funny. It's one of those things where it kind of depends on the issues, right?
Yeah.
And some of the issues where we're far apart don't matter too much to me because they're not on my priority list. I think we both had moments where we were like, yeah, you know, we want this to work, but can it work under these circumstances? And it was something that we really had to work through.
Yeah.
You know, we'd have to come back later when the conversation wasn't as heated and say, look, this is my perspective and this is your perspective, and we'll probably never agree on this, but maybe we can agree on a better way to talk about it and a better way to come to an understanding and just appreciate kind of the perspective that each person is giving.
Exactly.
Personally, I think it takes a level of maturity that is probably a little further beyond than what I can even handle.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. You know, it's funny because
No,
it's
I
not like
know.
we thought about it that way. It's not like we were like, you know, we really need to have a level head in this so that our relationship works.
And it's fun because we're both such stubborn people too. So you would think that we would have to have very accommodating personalities, and neither of us are. We're very stubborn, strong-willed people. So it just, for all intents and purposes, you would think that it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But it always does because neither of us is, well, one, afraid to check the other person when they need to be checked, and two, we have the conversation. I feel like that's what's missing with a lot of, you know, discourse.
It's like when you guys are having the conversations, like how does it go?
It usually will start, we'll either talk about a news story that just happened or, you know.
I mean, honestly, that's how it usually starts, right? Something happens that is controversial. It kind of inserts itself into our life. And something happens, like for example, this week, there was controversial abortion bills that have been passed across the country, and she was getting ready for bed, and she turned to me and she goes, so what do you think about that anyway? And that's kind of how the conversations start.
Yeah.
And they don't usually end that civil, but it just really depends on the topic.
Yeah, and they end that civil. Sometimes we have to like take our space, you know, walk away. We don't scream or like curse at each other, but we'll get frustrated, and then sometimes we'll, you know, have to kind of like storm out of the room. But then, like I was saying, we always find our way back and being like, okay, well, let's really talk about it. Let's not just say, you know, heated emotions. Let's talk about why you feel that way. We usually get not even to a middle ground. Neither one of us is really conceding, but I just understand how your mind is working, and I don't know. I think that we just...
I would say that we don't moderate or come to the center on our political beliefs. What we do is we kind of start far apart in our emotional state, kind of what is driving us to believe these things, and we come to a consensus on, okay, well, I now see where you're coming from on that. I don't agree with it, but at least it gives you that kind of perspective, and I think that's helped everybody on the other side, regardless of what side you're on. They all seem illogical.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of helped bridge that gap.
Okay. Like from what I'm hearing right now, it just sounds like a normal marriage, right? If you're married out there, that's gonna happen in marriage. You're gonna find something that you're gonna argue about. You're gonna want to walk out of the room. You come back, and one might be wrong for the way they behaved, but still believe they were right in what they said, and then they'll respond accordingly.
Definitely.
So it doesn't seem like there's much of a difference here.
For a lot of relationships at work, one of the main reasons is because you are with someone that's like a complement to your personality. Like you're different enough that you balance each other out.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that way about our political beliefs. That if you were in a relationship with someone that was so similar to you and agreed with you on every single thing, I just don't feel like that's as healthy as it is to just kind of like challenge each other and to like check each other when you need to be checked, and to, you know, build each other up when you need to be built up. And so I like kind of our push and pull dynamic and our balance that we have, because I think that it works for us at least.
Now that you guys, like now that you're married to somebody who you disagree with politically, and then you see people like online or whatever, and you see how they handle it, like what goes through your mind when you see others like name calling, in a sense, other people who they disagree with?
This might be a cop-out, but we're talking about civility, right? And I think what's lacking in the political discourse today is that essence of civility, because that is really the underpinning of how we've been able to come together without actually coming together and having one state of mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's all these other things in life that matter, or things that are important, things like culture and music and food and all these other things that we're actually a lot closer on than you would think. And that's kind of the driving force that allows us to have that kind of civil conversation. So when we see other people that go on, family members, friends, and they're attacking each other.
I know, between families.
Like, it's crazy to me that they would let something, even as important as these issues can be, that they would allow something like that to break up important things like family relationships or best friends from childhood or different things like that. It's not worth it.
Like I think you were saying too, I think it's a respect thing too, and I think it's very easy to not feel like you need to respect people that you don't know when you're behind a computer screen.
Yeah.
You have that wall so you can be invincible and say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, we are all humans with different perspectives and different stories, and people just need to respect our differences and kind of embrace them and not polarize based on those differences.
What would you say to somebody who is like struggling with being civil with other people? Because they feel like civility has left the building. Like, what would you say to someone? Because I get that a lot. A lot of people say that to me, like, well, you can't be civil with them anymore. You just can't be civil with. It's like, how do you, like, what would you say to someone like that?
Well, because they started defensive, right? Like they see the, I mean, I'm being repetitive, but I would tell them to focus on what you have in common and kind of start from there. And I know that that's a really hard thing to do when someone meets you with aggression, and that's the first interaction that you have, to kind of be the bigger person and to remove a little bit of emotion and to try to think of it logically and say, okay, you know, you're coming at me aggressive, but, you know, let's talk about this. I think that if you're able to kind of like step back, then that person will instantly have the mirror up to their face like, oh, okay, I am kind of being crazy and over the top. And if this person that I'm trying to be combative with is willing to kind of step down and have a conversation, then I'll honor it and I'll have a conversation.
So the fact that you have maybe 45% of the population that believes one side, 45% that believes the other, and people in the middle, 10%, maybe don't have an opinion or don't care or have some kind of radical opinion, kind of shows you that there really isn't a moral high ground. So then it just comes down to, you know, personal values, and you can't project those on other people.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work between us, and we're married.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't expect to be able to project my moral values on a stranger or a neighbor or a family member. It just wouldn't work. You know, it's just about the approach, right? I think today is different than 10 years ago, and even 10 years before that. I know as a child I was very engaged in politics. I was volunteering on campaigns, knocking doors. I was doing this as early as my sophomore year in high school, and it's always been something that's important to me. But when you have other things in life that are important to you, like my wife, my family, my friends, I'd give all that stuff up in a heartbeat just to make sure that I maintain my family relationships, the things that are important to me.
Yeah.
So I think perspective and the approach will really help people. If they just take a moment to sit back and, I guess, reassess what's really important in life. And then maybe we can start having a civil conversation about how to ensure that we can continue having those things that are important in life.
Ditto.
All right.
Success story of our country is founded on these principles of, you know, the freedom and the ability to have those differing opinions and still come together as one.
Thank you guys so much for taking your time out of your wonderful day to chat with me. And thank you for tuning in. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment below. Don't say anything negative. Well, I guess you could, but be civil about it, right? I mean, that's. Yeah. Usually I cut people out. I'm not doing it right now because I totally don't know what you're doing, but it's funny, so I'm just gonna leave it. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Follow me on Instagram. I'll leave a link in my description below, and on Facebook, I'll leave the link in the description below as well, so you guys can find me and follow, and also leave comments on the things I post daily. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Until next time, we're out of here.